My narcissistic mother flirts with every boyfriend I bring home because she believes I don't deserve them. I'm Emma. I'm 24, and I've been living with this situation for the past 6 years. Every guy I've introduced to my family has received the same routine from my mother: the lingering hugs, the comments about how attractive they are, the sudden need to wear her tightest outfits whenever they visit. But 3 months ago, I decided I'd had enough. I was tired of watching promising relationships fall apart because my mother couldn't accept that someone might choose me over her. So I created a plan that was either very smart or completely reckless. I was going to introduce her to a fake boyfriend. It all started with my most recent ex, Tyler. He was kind, sincere, and worked as an elementary school teacher near my apartment. We had been dating for about 4 months when I finally built up the courage to invite him to Sunday dinner. My mother, Patricia, was 52 and still strikingly beautiful. She had modeled in her 20s and never let anyone forget it. Even now, she spent 3 hours each morning on hair and makeup, trained with a personal trainer 5 days a week, and owned a wardrobe worth more than most people's rent. The moment Tyler walked in, I saw the assessment in her eyes. "Oh my goodness, Emma, you didn't tell me how handsome he was," she said, pulling him into a hug that lasted far too long. "I can see why you're so taken with him." During dinner, she asked about his job, hobbies, and family. Normal questions on the surface, but she kept touching his arm and laughing at everything he said as if it were brilliant. "You know, Emma rarely brings anyone home," she told him while I was in the kitchen getting dessert. I was starting to worry she'd never find someone good enough. When I returned with the pie, Tyler looked uneasy and my mother looked pleased. After he left, she cornered me in the hallway. "He seems nice, honey," she said in that tone that always preceded criticism. "Maybe a little basic for you, though. An elementary school teacher? You could probably do better." This was her pattern. First, she would flirt to see if they responded. Then she would plant doubts in my mind about whether they were right for me. Meanwhile, she would begin texting them directly, inventing reasons to invite them over when I wasn't there. It had worked on my previous 3 boyfriends. They became confused and uncomfortable with the strange dynamic, and eventually they drifted away rather than deal with it. But Tyler was different. He told me what was happening. "Your mom's been texting me," he said 2 weeks after dinner. We were sitting in his living room and he looked genuinely concerned. "What kind of texts?" He showed me his phone. Messages asking about his weekend plans, suggestions for yoga classes, invitations to grab coffee to talk about Emma's happiness. "She says she just wants to make sure I'm treating you well," Tyler explained. "But some of this feels off." I scrolled through the messages, my stomach tightening. She was subtle, but the strategy was clear. She was building a private connection and positioning herself as the caring mother who only wanted what was best for me. "I don't want to cause issues between you and your family," Tyler said, "but this feels inappropriate." "It is," I replied, "and I'm sorry. This is exactly why I don't usually introduce anyone to her." "Has this happened before?" "Every time." He was quiet for a while. "Emma, that's not normal. You know that, right?" I did know, but recognizing a problem and fixing it are two different things. 3 days later, Tyler ended the relationship. "I really care about you," he said, "but I can't handle your mother. The constant messages, the way she looks at me, the comments about us, it's overwhelming." I cried for hours after he left. Not just because I lost someone good, but because I realized I might spend my life alone unless I addressed my mother's behavior. That's when the fake boyfriend idea formed. I needed someone who could handle her manipulation, someone who wouldn't be flattered or intimidated, someone who could reflect her tactics back at her without getting emotionally involved. The challenge was finding that person. Then I thought of Alex Russo. Alex and I were friends in college before we lost touch after graduation. He studied theater and planned to become an actor. He was undeniably attractive. Tall, dark hair, green eyes, and a smile that once earned him deadline extensions on papers he hadn't even written. Alex is gay, though he wasn't open about it in college. We stayed connected on social media, and I saw his posts about coming out to his family and moving in with his boyfriend, Marcus. More importantly, Alex enjoys drama and has no tolerance for manipulative people. I messaged him, explained everything, and to my surprise, he was immediately interested. "Oh, this sounds like the most entertaining thing I've heard in months," he wrote. "Marcus will love this. When do we start?" We met for coffee the following weekend to plan. Alex was even more attractive than I remembered, and his confidence would absolutely unsettle my mother. "So what's the objective?" he asked. "Do we want her to back off, or are we going full revenge?" "I just want her to stop interfering in my real relationships," I said. "If she's focused on you, maybe she'll leave my actual dating life alone." "Understood. I'll be charming enough to get her attention, but distant enough to frustrate her." "Exactly." We developed our backstory. We had reconnected through friends, been dating for 2 months, and things were getting serious. Alex would be attentive, but not overly affectionate. Successful, but understated. Interested in her opinions without seeking approval. "The key," Alex said, "is to make her feel like she's competing with you, like I could choose her if she played it right." That sounds awful. It is, but that's how she operates, isn't it? She can't tolerate you having something she can't. 2 weeks later, I brought Alex to dinner. My mother answered the door in a dress I'd never seen before, hair and makeup flawless. She took one look at him, and I could see her reaction instantly. "You must be Alex," she said, extending her hand as if expecting him to kiss it. "Emma has told me so much." "All good, I hope," Alex replied with an easy smile. "And you must be Patricia. Emma didn't mention how beautiful her mother is." My mother practically melted. She giggled and led us inside, shifting immediately into perfect hostess mode. During dinner, Alex performed flawlessly. He asked about her modeling years, praised her cooking, and listened carefully to her stories about the people she'd met. But he kept one hand resting lightly on my knee and made sure to include me in every exchange. "Emma's lucky to have such an interesting mother," he said. "I can see where she gets her confidence." "Oh, Emma has always been shy," my mother replied. "I tell her she needs to put herself out there." "I think Emma is perfect as she is," Alex said, squeezing my hand. "But I'd love to hear more about your modeling days." For the next hour, she repeated stories I'd heard countless times. Alex laughed appropriately, asked follow-up questions, and made her feel fascinating. After dinner, while I loaded the dishwasher, I heard them in the living room. Alex was asking about her workout routine and skincare, telling her she looked at least 10 years younger. "Emma is lucky to have someone who appreciates quality," my mother said. "I definitely appreciate quality," Alex replied smoothly. When we left, she hugged him and told him he was welcome anytime. "She likes you," I said as we drove away. "She likes the idea of winning," Alex corrected. "She's already imagining the storyline." Over the next few weeks, the plan worked. She began texting him within days. Harmless messages at first, asking about work, sending articles she thought he'd enjoy. Alex showed me everything and crafted replies that kept her engaged but unsatisfied. Friendly, never flirtatious, warm, never inviting. She even started treating me better when Alex was about my feelings as well. "Of course," my mother said, leaning forward with anticipation. "Patricia, you are an incredible woman, beautiful, intelligent, refined. Any man would be fortunate to have your attention." She looked pleased. "But I'm completely and deeply in love with Emma." Her expression dropped immediately. "And there's something else," Alex continued. "I'm gay." The room went silent. My mother blinked several times. "I'm sorry, what?" she asked. "I'm gay, Patricia. I've known my whole life. I have a boyfriend named Marcus. We've been together for 3 years. Emma and I have been pretending to date because she was exhausted from you sabotaging her real relationships." She looked back and forth between us, her face shifting from confusion to embarrassment and then anger. "This is a joke," she said. "It's not," Alex replied calmly. "Emma asked for help because she was losing every decent man she met to your interference. She hoped that if you were focused on me, you would leave her actual dating life alone." "You've been lying to me for 2 months. You've been lying to yourself for years," Alex responded evenly. "Do you honestly think it's normal to compete with your own daughter for male attention? Do you think it's healthy to undermine her relationships because you can't stand not being the center of attention?" My mother stood up quickly. "I don't have to listen to this." "No, you don't," Alex said. "But maybe you should." She turned to me, and for the first time in years, I saw genuine hurt in her eyes. "How could you do this to me? How could I do this to you?" I repeated. "Mom, you've driven away every guy I've dated since I was 18. You flirt with them, you text them behind my back. You make them feel guilty for being with me instead of giving you attention. You've disrupted 6 years of my dating life. I never sabotaged anything. If those boys couldn't handle a little friendly attention from your mother, they weren't good enough." "Friendly attention?" Alex said. "Patricia, you asked me to meet for coffee 3 times. You sent me photos from your yoga class. You told me Emma and I were settling." Her face turned pale. "I never sent anything inappropriate." Alex showed her his phone. She had sent multiple photos from yoga sessions, wearing sports bras and tight leggings, with captions about how exercise kept her young. "Those weren't inappropriate," she insisted. "Patricia," Alex said gently, "you're a beautiful woman, but you're also old enough to be my mother. This isn't flattering. It's sad." That's when she lost control. She yelled about being humiliated, about us making her look foolish, about never forgiving either of us. She threw the wine bottle against the wall, called me ungrateful, and accused Alex of leading her on. "I'm leaving," she announced. "Don't expect me to speak to you anytime soon, Emma. Maybe when you learn to respect your mother." She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to startle the neighbor's dog. Alex and I sat in silence. "That went better than expected," he finally said. "She threw a bottle at my wall. But she won't bother your next boyfriend. She'll be too embarrassed to try her usual tactics again." He was right, though not in the way we predicted. For the next 3 weeks, she didn't contact me at all. No calls, no messages, no surprise visits. It was the longest we had gone without speaking since I moved out. I started to believe that maybe the confrontation had forced her to reflect. Then my Aunt Linda called. "Emma, I need to tell you something about your mother," she said. "She's been staying with me since your argument, and she's telling everyone a very different story." "What do you mean?" "She says you brought home a gay man and pretended he was your boyfriend because you were jealous of the attention he gave her. She claims you planned the whole thing to humiliate her because you can't stand that men find her attractive." My stomach dropped. "That's not true." "I know. But she's calling relatives, friends, even some people from your workplace. She's presenting herself as the victim of a cruel prank by a jealous daughter." This was exactly what she did when she couldn't control a situation directly. She rewrote it. "There's more," Linda added. "She's posting about it on Facebook. Nothing that names you, but anyone who knows the family can connect the dots. Posts about daughters who resent attractive mothers, about children turning against their parents." The rest of the day was filled with calls from relatives asking for my side. Some believed me, others seemed unsure. On social media, she shared vague posts about betrayal and articles about narcissistic children who mistreat their parents, receiving dozens of supportive comments. "She's doing to you what she did to your boyfriends," Alex said when I called him in tears. "She's controlling the narrative. I can't fight this. She's too skilled at it." "Maybe you don't need to fight. Let her play the victim, but then she has to live with the logic of her own story." I didn't understand until my cousin Rachel called the next day. "Emma, I've been thinking," she said. "If Alex was just your friend helping you, why would your mom feel embarrassed about flirting with him?" "What do you mean?" "According to her, she was only being friendly. But if she knew nothing inappropriate happened, why would she feel humiliated? Finding out your daughter's boyfriend is gay should be awkward at most, not devastating." I could hear her reasoning through it. "The only way her story works," Rachel continued, "is if she behaved in a way that made the truth embarrassing." Other family members began asking similar questions. The more they analyzed her version, the less it made sense. Why would I go through so much effort to embarrass her if she had done nothing wrong? Why would she react so strongly if everything had been innocent? Within a week, the tone shifted. Relatives started asking her directly what she had said or done that made Alex's revelation so humiliating. She couldn't answer without admitting inappropriate behavior. Meanwhile, I started dating again. His name was James, a lawyer I met through a coworker. From the beginning, I was honest about my family situation. "So your mom sabotaged your relationships and you recruited a gay actor to pose as your boyfriend to prove a point?" he said on our third date. That's either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. I respect the creativity. James was different, confident, established, and not easily intimidated. When I introduced him to my mother 6 months later, the dynamic changed entirely. She tried her usual lingering hug, but James kept it brief. "Patricia, it's nice to meet Emma's mother," he said politely. "She talks about you often." Whenever my mother tried to redirect attention to herself, James brought it back to me. "Emma didn't mention she studied art history," he'd say. "Tell me what drew you to that field." When she asked personal questions about him, he answered politely and then included me in the conversation. "That's interesting, Patricia. Emma, what's your take on that?" By the end of dinner, she looked frustrated. Her typical tactics weren't working. James made it clear he was there for me. After that, she barely interfered. Occasional comments, yes, but no aggressive flirting, no secret texting. 2 years later, James and I got engaged. When we shared the news, my mother said, "Well, I suppose he's acceptable, though you're both young for such a big decision." We were 27 and 31. What still stands out is that she never admitted what she had done, even after the confrontation, even after family questioned her. In her mind, she was the victim of a cruel joke. Strangely, that worked in my favor. Her commitment to that narrative meant she couldn't risk behaving the same way with James. If she did, it would contradict her claim that she had been innocent in the Alex situation. Her own narcissism limited her behavior. Wedding planning brought new challenges. She suggested a larger venue, a more expensive photographer, different flowers. "Patricia, we appreciate your input, but we've already decided on the menu," James would say. "That's an interesting idea, but we're happy with our photographer." She couldn't charm her way into control, and she couldn't manipulate James. For the first time, I had a partner immune to her influence. The wedding was beautiful. She behaved appropriately, though her dress was arguably more eye-catching than expected for the mother of the bride. During the reception, she gave a surprisingly kind speech about being proud of me and welcoming James into the family. For a moment, I thought she had changed. Then at the bouquet toss, she stood in the center of the group and caught the flowers. "Looks like I'm next," she announced, winking at James' unmarried brother. Some habits remain. Here's what I learned. You cannot fix a narcissistic parent by confronting them directly. They will rewrite events to protect their image. You cannot change them by trying harder or choosing better words. What you can do is protect yourself. Choose partners who won't fall for manipulation. I just laughed. After everything we had been through, my mother was still my mother. Still beautiful, still charming, and still unable to see the world from anyone's perspective but her own. But she was no longer able to ruin my relationships, and that was enough. The most important lesson I took from this experience is that you don't have to fix your family to be happy. You just have to learn how to protect yourself from their worst tendencies while maintaining whatever connection is realistically possible. My mother will likely always be a narcissist. She will probably always need to be the center of attention and struggle to recognize that other people's feelings matter as much as hers, but she will also always be my mother. And despite everything, I do love her. I simply love myself enough now to let her destroy my happiness. Sometimes that is the most you can expect from a complicated family dynamic. The fake boyfriend plan worked not because it changed my mother, but because it changed me. It showed me that I could take control of situations that once felt impossible, that I could protect myself without cutting ties completely, and that sometimes the best response is refusing to remain a victim. My mother still believes she did nothing wrong with my previous boyfriends. She still prefers her version of the Alex story, where she was the innocent target of her daughter's jealousy. But she also understands that her usual tactics don't work on James, and she has seen what happens when she pushes too far. That may be as close to resolution as we will ever get, and honestly, I'm at peace with that. A so-called psychopath saved a life, and no one believed it. Jake was the kid people whispered about in school hallways. After a psychological evaluation raised concerns, his guidance counselor unofficially labeled him a concerning student. That same week, Jake decided to spend an afternoon walking through the old cemetery. He noticed a little girl sitting motionless by a grave. She wasn't crying or playing. She was just sitting there, unusually still. Most people might assume she was visiting a relative. Jake sensed something was wrong. He approached her and asked if she was okay. She looked up with unfocused eyes and quietly said, "I can't remember how to get home." She had been there since morning, and it was nearly dark. Jake recognized signs of severe dehydration. He called 911, stayed beside her, and shared his water until help arrived. Paramedics confirmed she was in serious condition. She had wandered away from her babysitter hours earlier and had been slowly shutting down in the heat. Others had passed by, assuming she was fine. That same week, Jake was labeled as lacking empathy. Yet he was the only person who stopped to help a child in danger. Her parents tried to thank him, but he had already left. One paramedic later said it seemed like Jake noticed things others overlooked. "A random child called me Mom, and I couldn't stop crying. I had taken my kids to the local library's weekend play hour. There was a puppet show in the children's section, and I thought it would be a welcome break. My 3 little ones sat on the carpet with other kids, whispering and laughing as the show began. I stayed at the edge, enjoying a rare, quiet moment. Every few minutes, my kids would turn and wave, saying, 'Hi, Mom,' and I would smile back. I noticed a small boy nearby, maybe 3 or 4 years old. After watching my children wave, he began doing the same. He shyly waved at me and softly said, 'Mom.' At first, I assumed he was confused, but when I smiled, his entire face lit up. He kept looking for my reaction, and I continued smiling back. I glanced around to see who he was with, but no one approached. After the show, as I gathered our jackets, one of the coordinators came over. She explained that the little boy was staying with a temporary foster family and had come with a volunteer. Then, she added quietly, 'He's had a difficult few weeks. I think that moment meant more than you realize.' I hugged my children tighter as we left, holding back tears I couldn't fully explain. Am I wrong for not inviting my biological mother to my wedding, but inviting my stepmother? My biological mother left when I was 8 to find herself in California with a man named Chad who sold essential oils at farmers markets. 2 years later, my stepmom, Lisa, entered my life. She taught me to tie my shoes, helped with homework, attended every soccer game, and supported me through high school challenges. Yet some relatives insisted that DNA matters more than presence. After 15 years of silence, my biological mother resurfaced wanting to be mother of the bride, saying, "It's my right as your real mother." She overlooked every birthday, graduation, and heartbreak she had missed. Lisa never tried to replace anyone. She simply showed up. Here's where the conflict began. I sent Lisa an invitation labeled Mother of the Bride. My biological mother received a standard +1 invitation to the reception. Family members accused me of being unfair, repeating that blood is thicker than water, but the full saying is that the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The family you choose can be stronger than the one you are born into. Lisa earned her place by being present for 18 years, not by sharing my DNA for 9 months. Sometimes honoring the people who truly loved you is worth being misunderstood. An anesthesiologist asked what I would never forget hearing from a patient under anesthesia. I'm a nurse anesthetist. Last Tuesday, before gallbladder surgery, Mrs. Henderson grabbed my wrist and whispered, "The pineapple magnet knows where we buried the time capsule with Jake's letters," then murmured something that sounded like coordinates before losing consciousness. I thought about it all day. That evening, I drove by her house. There was a pineapple magnet on the mailbox. I followed the coordinates to her backyard and dug near where an old sundial had once stood. I found a rusted metal box. Inside were over 100 letters between her and someone named Jake, written over 15 years under names like Admiral Stargazer and Captain Nebula. Each letter ended with, "Someday I'll tell you the truth." The next morning, I called to check on her and casually mentioned telescopes. She laughed softly. "I hope he still remembers," she said. He stopped writing after his father told him I wasn't really his grandmother, I was just the neighbor. But I loved him like he was mine. She asked me not to tell him if he ever searched. Let him believe it was real, she said. It was real to me. I suggested she might want to check her garden soon. She went quiet, then whispered, "So he kept them." "You both did," I replied. "Best friends who promised you would never drift apart." "What happened?" "Rosie and I had a strange tradition. We used to attend wedding receptions uninvited, not for the food, although the salmon was usually decent, but to play a game we called Guess the Divorce Timeline. We would observe couples and predict how long their marriages would last. We were surprisingly accurate. Last month, I received a formal wedding invitation. Elegant paper. Professional calligraphy. Rosie Elizabeth Morrison invited me to witness her marriage to someone named David at the country club we used to criticize for its bland decor. The part that hurt most was that she had never mentioned David. We spoke constantly about everything, including minor conflicts at the grocery store. When I called her, she paused. "Oh, you got the invitation." She had been engaged for 8 months to a man she met at one of our wedding crashes. Like, she hadn't told me because David was exactly the type we used to mock. Khaki pants, investment talk, structured plans. I attended anyway. I found her in her dress and whispered, "So, how long do you think this one will last?" She laughed and said, "Honestly, I've been asking myself that for months." I caught my husband on a dating app. He said he was just curious. I was ordering food late one night when I saw his phone light up on the coffee table. A notification from someone named Madison appeared, filled with heart emojis and starting with, "Hey, handsome." I'm not usually someone who invades privacy, but this required clarity. While he was in the bathroom, I looked at his phone. There it was, a full dating profile. Professional photos I had never seen, one taken at a gym we don't even belong to. His bio read, "Recently single and ready to mingle, looking for someone who appreciates craft beer and weekend adventures." Recently single, we had been married for 6 years. He drinks basic beer and considers a Target trip an adventure. He had around 50 matches, conversations with yoga instructors,
The
real
audacity
estate
of this
agents,
man.
and others. He immediately starts backtracking, saying he loves me and that it was a stupid mistake. Meanwhile, I'm calmly screenshotting every conversation because my divorce attorney is going to appreciate this documentation. "You know what's really messed up?" I tell him while capturing his chat with a 23-year-old named Chloe. "You told Madison you're looking for someone who appreciates home-cooked meals, but you haven't eaten anything I've made in 3 months without complaining." He tries to grab his phone, but I've already forwarded everything to my email. I'm not naive. The expression on his face when I began dragging his Xbox toward the front door was unforgettable. "You can't take my Xbox," he says. "Watch me, window shopper." I packed up his gaming system, his craft beer collection he never drinks, and his lucky fishing hat that makes him look like a discount outdoor catalog model. Apparently, curiosity didn't just harm the cat. It ended his marriage, his gaming privileges, and his access to the house with reliable Wi-Fi. Yes, I kept the house and the dog. And yes, I kept his Netflix password. Petty? Maybe. Earned? Absolutely. Madison and the other 49 women can have him, but they're getting someone who leaves dishes in the sink and watches the same 3 Marvel movies on repeat. So if you're swiping and see a guy named Brad who says he's recently divorced and loves adventure, just know that his idea of living dangerously is going to Costco on a Saturday. Ever receive a birthday message from Domino's but not from your best friend? It was my 26th birthday. I was alone in my studio apartment eating leftover pizza when my phone buzzed. Domino's texted, "Happy birthday, enjoy 20% off your next order." I smiled for the first time that day. At least someone remembered. My best friend since middle school, the one who used to sleep over every weekend and knew I was afraid of the dark, had said nothing. We had been texting just 2 days earlier. Social media literally sends reminders. Still, silence. I made excuses for her. Maybe she was busy with her new job in Denver. Maybe she was planning a surprise. Then I saw her Instagram story that night. She was at Topgolf with people I'd never seen before, posting about her amazing new squad with heart emojis everywhere, everywhere. That's when I understood. Somewhere between graduation and adulthood, I had become the backup friend, the familiar option when new friendships weren't available. The pizza company that wanted my money acknowledged my birthday more sincerely than someone who once promised we'd be sisters forever. And that automated message felt more genuine than our last 10 conversations combined. Ever hide your emotions because men don't cry was repeated throughout your childhood? I'm 32, sitting in my car after watching Inside Out 2 with my girlfriend, trying not to tear up. Apparently, Animated movies about feelings hit differently when you've spent decades suppressing your own. Your own. My dad's voice echoes in my head. Real men don't cry. Toughen up. What are you, a girl? Classic 90s parenting. Sarah looks at me and says, it's okay to feel something about a Pixar movie. Meanwhile, I'm calculating whether getting emotional over cartoon characters makes me less of a man according to a rule book I never asked for. Then my phone buzzes. It's my nephew. Uncle Mike, I cried during the movie too. My friend said boys don't cry, but you always say it's okay to feel things. Are you proud of me? That message hit harder than anything in the film. Here was an 8-year-old showing more emotional courage than I had for years. I realized strength isn't about hiding pain, it's about acknowledging it and still standing tall. I texted him back, prouder than you'll ever know. Real men cry when something matters. Ever watched coworkers celebrate someone else's birthday while yours went unnoticed? I was in the break room watching everyone sing to Jessica from accounting. The cake came out, phones recorded for social media. I was wearing a birthday badge my mom bought me online, hoping someone would notice. As I scrolled through my phone, feeling overlooked, I saw a text from my little sister. Happy birthday, loser. Mom made your favorite cake. We're all waiting for you. Some of us actually matter. While I was hoping coworkers would make my day special, my family had been sending messages all morning. I was too busy feeling invisible to see them. Sometimes the people who truly value you aren't the ones you're trying to impress. They're the ones who've been celebrating you all along. When did you realize you weren't the favorite child? I was 13, sitting in the bleachers at my brother Jake's Little League championship. I had won a math competition earlier that day. My medal sat in my lap. No one had asked about it. My parents cheered wildly for Jake. When he struck out, my mom cried like he'd lost a scholarship instead of a suburban league trophy. I thought I could cure cancer and they'd still ask if I remembered Jake's game schedule. Years later, after my dad's funeral, I found photo albums filled with pictures of me at that math competition. Dozens. My mom had even mailed copies to relatives with notes saying how proud they were. They just didn't express it the same way they did for sports. I spent 15 years believing I was invisible, when in reality, I was loved in a language I didn't understand. For those who moved to a new country, what was the hardest part? I found out I was pregnant the same day my Canadian work visa was approved. I left the doctor's office holding a job offer in Toronto and 2 pink lines of confirmation. Instead of calling my boyfriend Alex, I got my passport stamped. Somehow that felt easier. 3 weeks later, I was in Toronto eating pho above a Vietnamese restaurant, Googling healthcare options while texting him that I had moved. 6 months later, Alex showed up at my door. He had planned to propose the day I left. He'd kept the ring for half a year and crossed an ocean to ask a question. When he noticed I wasn't drinking the beer he brought, he went pale. How far along? 7 months. He placed the ring beside the sriracha bottle. I came to ask you to marry me, but now I think I should ask if you want me to stay. I looked at him, then at my stomach. I don't know, but do you want to find out together? He moved to Toronto 2 months before our daughter was born. We never married, but that ring sat on our kitchen table for years. Has another parent ever gotten angry when you said no to their child? At Target, a woman demanded I hand over a Batman action figure her daughter wanted from my cart. She accused me of teaching greed when I refused. What she didn't know was that 6 months earlier, my 8-year-old son Marcus had asked for that same figure before leukemia took him. The morning he died, it sat on his nightstand while he talked about future adventures. I had promised to buy another one to remember him. When she finally grabbed it and handed it to her daughter, saying, "See, that wasn't so hard," I didn't fight back. Watching that little girl smile reminded me too much of Marcus. I walked out empty-handed, realizing that sometimes saying no isn't selfish. It's about protecting fragile pieces of your heart. Has your family criticized your baby name choice? My extended family staged what felt like an intervention because I wanted to name my son River, my twin brother's name. He died by suicide. "You can't name a baby after someone like that," my aunt said at Thanksgiving. "It's bad luck." My parents suggested safer names. They talked about energy, as if mental illness could pass through syllables. River wasn't just my brother. He was my twin. Planning a nursery without him felt like building a memorial. After months of pressure, when the nurse asked for my son's name, I looked at my husband and said, River James. Sometimes honoring someone means refusing to let others erase them. Ever been banned from a drive-thru for being too polite? When I was 17 and my mom was dying of cancer, I spent 20 minutes every day at the McDonald's drive-thru asking the staff about their lives. They didn't look at me with pity. They didn't know about chemo. For 6 months, that drive-thru felt like therapy. The day after my mom died, I broke down sobbing at the window. The manager told me I couldn't hold up the line and suggested I process my feelings elsewhere. I never went back. 20 years later, I still wonder if Jessica or Marcus remember the kid who cared too much because he was afraid to face his own grief. Ever meet a celebrity